Hey, morning, everybody. Welcome to The Sweat, a Friday edition of The Sweat presented by DraftKings. I am Emerson Lancia. So coming up in this show, we got Mike Jolick, what the hell?
Wow.
Jeff Ulrich, shut up and let me tease the damn show. Mike Golick Sr. is going to hang out with us a little bit because he's going to tell us why Aaron Rodgers needs to chill out and treat his trip to London as an actual business trip and not so focused on mashing Guinness and going and seeing Big Ben. Matthew Tkachuk will be hanging out with the Levitard Show gang, so that's going to be on the show because the NHL starts tonight. We have a season preview. So do the MLB Playoffs. We're going to get into some of the best bets there and best bets around college football. A huge show, yes. But come on, Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, come on in. Come on in really quick because last night was a cluster F. It was disgusting. But you know what? Sometimes a win ain't pretty. Just like in the Millie Maker. Let's go. Jaguar Lou taking home the fat $1 million. Alec Pierce, Jeff, who I said was the perfect play on Thursday Night Football. Yes, I am an analyst now. He was in the captain's spot, but with such a bad game, okay, we almost had a kicker in the captain's spot. Less than half a point behind him. Second place. Look at this. Oh, my God. Dreams were absolutely shattered. A captain, 25.5 points. A dude who kicks the football. Jeff Ulrich, I'm sorry. But last night was one of the worst 4 quarters of football that I have ever seen. You had Denver fans leaving before halftime because they are crushed. Russell Wilson is a fraud. $250 million, $250 million, Jeff. Why do you continue to support this man?
There's so much to unpack here. First of all, the Broncos fans who left at halftime were really, really smart because if you were a Broncos fan, you watched that last Bronco drive in the fourth quarter and then blow the game.
Yeah.
I don't even know. There's probably still Broncos fans just on the field, just shocked at what happened. So there's that. Second of all, how are we giving airtime to these lineups with kickers and captains? What is going on? It's 2022.
Dude, if that was a good game last night, we wouldn't be giving them airtime. No one would have won with a kicker in the captain's spot. This is because it was one of the worst games in NFL history.
How dare you people roster kickers and the captains? This is anarchy right now. Absolute anarchy. That game was so bad it was good. Let's put it that way. That's probably the best way to put it. I don't know. Look. All right. Let's get to the Broncos. Let's talk about the Broncos quickly.
Go ahead.
Nathaniel Hackett is proving himself to be potentially Urban Meyer levels of inept. That's an issue for the Broncos. What I will say about Russell Wilson and the Broncos, their defense is still legit. Defenses do good things. They sacked Matt Ryan to holy hell last night. The defense, even when it's banged up, is still very good. So there's that. This whole season of Russell Wilson so far reminds me of the first year Matt LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. They really weren't that good. Aaron Rodgers wasn't that good, Everyone said Aaron Rodgers was done. Russell Wilson, to me, he looks like he's just forgotten how to play football. Yeah. And he looks like he's in a new system that he doesn't understand. His arm strength looks fine. He's still moving around a little bit. He really doesn't look that much different. He just looks like he's forgotten how to play the game. It'll probably flip at some point, and everyone will be like, hey, Russ is cooking again. And everyone will just delete all their tweets about,
hell no.
Like you with the Cheerios and whatever. So that's my take on the Broncos right now. Are they a good team? No, because their head coach loses them football games and their quarterback still hasn't figured it out. But I don't think that Russ's career is cooked. I think you will see him return to at least some modicum of what he was before. But yeah, this Broncos team just cannot get out of their own way. It's really ugly, and if you're a Broncos fan, I mean, this team could easily be 5-0. It's not a stretch to say the Broncos could be 5-0 today if they just had a head coach who knew what he was doing.
Okay, did they make the right call? Pierce, you said that Russell Wilson has been washed here for the last season or two. So go ahead and take your victory lap here. And did Nathaniel Hackett actually make the right call this time by not kicking the field goal?
No, he made the wrong decision in trusting Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, if he still believes in Russell Wilson, I'm not surprised Jeff Ulrich still believes in Russell Wilson. But guess what? The 7 billion people on planet Earth, they don't believe in Russell Wilson. The only thing I will compliment Russell on his Subway commercial. I kind of like that thing. It's very creepy. He should probably just hang up the cleats now. Maybe go get a role in a David Lynch film. I think he could be pretty good in just a weird, creepy role.
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing pretty well at being a creepy quarterback, not getting anything done, throwing back-breaking picks. Some people might say, well, he threw 274 yards. Yeah, but if you watch the game, he does not look good.
Dude.
It's trouble there. They don't really have a running game. Defense is great, but the defense looked a lot better because they're playing the Colts. It's still a good defense, but the Colts offense made the Broncos look really good on defense. The Colts defense, maybe we should stop sleeping on them. Let's give them a little bit of credit as well. But again, stopping Russell Wilson and the Broncos, not the biggest deal. But I mean, if we want to find any silver linings in last night's game, the Colts defense is improving, and the Broncos defense is pretty solid. The rest of it, don't really care about.
Hot damn, KJ Hamler was so open. He was so pissed off after the game on that 4th down call because Russell Wilson was so locked in on going to Cortland Sutton, your guy, Jeff. But I tell you what, the most pathetic part last night of that game was afterwards. Russell Wilson, after his post-game press conference, he walks off the stage. Last thing he says into the mic is Broncos country, let's ride. Jeff Ulrich, he's got to be better at reading the room. Like, this is just too damn corny and cheesy.
What do you want him to say? What do you want him to say?
Not Broncos
it's
country,
over.
let's ride.
It's over. It's done. What do you want him to pull a Michael Scott? It's over, people.
Done.
Like what? I don't. What
Done.
Do
People
say?
in Denver have given up on him. He has let the good people of Denver down. All right. Samir, who is producing today, has got in my ear and says we got to move on because you look really sad right now, Jeff, backing these guys. So over under here.
Great morning.
All right, over under here. Let's go to an offense that just put up a boatload of points. That's the Lions. So the Patriots and Lions game total is actually down to 45.5 from 47 earlier in the week. The Lions clapping back here on Twitter at a fan. Fans like, get a new offensive coordinator who knows what plays to call. We have the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. Yeah, that is true, Detroit, but you also have the worst scoring defense in the NFL. All right. Patriots expected to start the rookie quarterback, Jeff Ulrich, in his first career start. So where is this total going to go here? Let's keep in mind the Packers struggled against this rookie quarterback, struggled to beat the Patriots with him in overtime last week.
Really in a huff about this Russell Wilson thing. Look, great tweet by the Lions. Probably bad timing. They're about to get thumped. It's their first outdoor game against the Patriots defense, who got a bunch of pressure last week. The Patriots are going to absolutely run the ball down the throat of the Lions. The Lions are last in yards per carry against. Ramondre Stevenson, Damian Williams. This whole game is going to be that. And they're going to get pressure on Jared Goff. Jared Goff's going to turn into a pumpkin in this game because he has no weapons. Take the under here. I'm a little bit worried that the Patriots actually put up like 30 or 35 points and this goes over, but I don't think that you can necessarily count on Zappy to do that. Give me the under here.
Okay, Pierce, what do you want?
Oh, give me the over. I believed in Zappy in the preseason. Here he is subbing for a quarterback that gets injured early in the year. Where have we seen this New England script before? This could be your next Tom Brady with Bailey Zappi out of nowhere. And he's got the matchup. This is a terrible defense. Detroit can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. They're giving up a ton of points every single week. He couldn't ask for a better situation. I mean, Zappi looked pretty good against Green Bay, just jumping into a game, almost winning. Now he's got a whole week to prepare. He's in a good spot. And I disagree. Goff and Detroit are going to be fine. Goff had nobody last week, and they still put up over 40 points on the board.
They're playing Seattle. Your boys, Pierce. The Seahawks.
Yeah, well, so here's the thing. You can overreact to DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown, but the real story with Detroit is their offensive line. They've got a top 5 run blocking unit, a top 5 pass blocking unit, and they're giving Goff time. What are you giving up on your boy, TJ Hawkinson? What's the deal?
If the Patriots stop the run, Goff is going to have a long, long day. Let's just put it there.
Dude, Josh Reynolds all day long. People, go get him in your fantasy long and thank me later. Okay, so
I won't.
From one rookie quarterback making his first start to another. Let's go. Kenny Pickett. The Kenny Pickett era has arrived in Pittsburgh. Jeff Ulrich, this is a guy that you said, hey, you got to start him in DFS this week. They're going up against Buffalo. We know Buffalo's defense is all banged up. Can Pickett, the kid out of Pittsburgh, he's a Panther, can he get the Steelers over their 15.5 team total? Jeff.
Yeah, sure he can. Look, I'm all in on Team Baby Hands here. I mean, Kenny Pickett going up against the banged up Buffalo Bills off defense. Why not? We got George Pickens coming to life over 100 yards last game. Deontay Johnson, an elite wide receiver. Freiermuth down the middle. Pickett's going to bring some swag to this offense. The tools are there for Pittsburgh to be able to move the ball. I think they're absolutely going to catch the Bills a little bit off guard. I've said this all week. The Bills are coming off 2 tough games. It's really tough in the NFL to just keep going to war every week, these long games, and then you got to come home. It's a letdown spot. I think the Bills go over this total, and I know they're not out yet, but once Pickett's passing props come up, they're probably going to be extremely depressed. I would look to go over there. I think he opens up this offense a little bit. I'm not calling for an upset, and you don't have to play him in DFS, but you can certainly look at the props and you can look at some low-owned combos like with Pickett and Pickens, but I think Pickett goes over this. I think the Steelers go over 15.5.
Pierce, Jesse Cofield has bigger hands than Kenny Pickett, so this is basically like Jesse Cofield starting an NFL game.
Yeah, that would be pretty rough, especially against the Buffalo Bills. Jeff wants to talk about how they're banged up. All right, well, they've been banged up all season. It's still the number 1 rated DVOA defense in the league with the number 1 pass DVOA. They also rarely blitz, and yet they get pressure nonstop on the quarterback. You couldn't dream of a worse situation for Pickett. I'll take the under. What I would really love to see is DraftKings Sportsbook man up here and put the Pickett picks total on the board. How many interceptions? They're probably going to have to like 2.5 to get this thing towards regular money. He's going to get intercepted. He's going to have a long day. I understand Jeff saying, oh, they got the tools, they got the weapons. Well, so did Roethlisberger. So did Trubisky. They had the tools, they had the weapons. This offense isn't working. Matt Canada, as offensive coordinator, has been a disaster. I don't think anything's going to get better this week. Maybe later in the season, but not this week.
Yeah, and the Steelers have averaged just 97 rushing yards per game, so that's not going to cut it against the Bills, who, by the way, have played just 1 home game this season. This will be just their 2nd home game. So let's go to the passing prop department. Jeff Ulrich, which one is going over this Sunday?
In real trouble with the words this morning, aren't
Dude,
you? I mean,
I'm too fired up.
What did you call him? G.I. Joe? I don't know. Look, yeah, passing props. I mean, look, we're talking about all these quarterbacks with depressed props, and Pierce wants to take the over on 4.5 interceptions for Kenny Pickett. Let's continue the trend of talking about quarterbacks who don't throw for many yards. Justin Fields this week. I actually really like the spot for Justin Fields to break out. And by breakout, I'm not suggesting he's going to go for like 350. I'm saying like over 200 yards. The Minnesota Vikings defense, it's not good. And they've been masked by some really, really weak matchups. They're 4th last in terms of yards per pass attempt allowed against. They've played some weaker teams here, but this is a team that also plays at a fast pace. They're top 5 in pace of play on offense, and they're going to be able to move the ball against Chicago. It just means more snaps, more dropbacks for Justin Fields, who threw for 285 against the Vikings last season. That's the 2nd highest passing total ever. Darnell Mooney got off the board, got off the mat last week a little bit. He's going up against a secondary with like Patrick Peterson back there. I think Mooney and Fields have a pretty good day. And Justin Fields props, last time I looked, it was like 166.5. Love the over on Justin Fields this week. Don't be afraid to take like the over on the touchdown props too. I think the Bears actually cover this game and make it close.
All right, Pierce, you got a passing prop you like?
Ryan Tannehill over 215.5 yards facing Washington, 30th in pass DVOA. I don't understand this. I mean, they're allowing a 105 QB rating. Their hurry rate is 30th. They are getting 14th in pressure, so that's just average, not really anything there. They're giving up a ton of air yards. They're giving up the largest depth of target. So there's an opportunity to go deep there. Also, if you want to go plus 160 on over 1.5 touchdowns for Ryan Tannehill, Washington's allowed the 3rd most passing touchdowns this season. I really like the over. You got 2 pretty bad pass defenses in this game. The under is pretty low. I think you get a sneaky total here in Washington versus Tennessee.
All right, let's wrap up our last question here, over-under segment quickly here, dude. So capping off Sunday night, we got a big divisional game between the Bengals and the Ravens. A total 47.5 on the DK Sportsbook, 2nd highest on Sunday. Are we going over this mark, Pierce?
Let's go over. Cincinnati's played well against Baltimore in the past. Baltimore's defense is struggling, bottom 3rd in rush defense. Pass defense is near the bottom in yards allowed, yards after catch, missed tackles. All those things allow teams to score a bunch of points, especially a team explosive like the Cincinnati Bengals with tons of guys that can take advantage of Baltimore's weaknesses, and we saw them do that last year. I think Lamar Jackson's going to have a tougher time with Cincinnati. Cincinnati's pretty familiar with Lamar Jackson. They know how to game plan around him, but still, you're not going to hold Lamar Jackson to nothing. He'll get some points on the board, and this will go over.
Jeff, both games easily going over last year with the Bengals putting up 41 points in each contest, too.
Yeah, so there's some converging trends here, and that's like the argument to the over. And I you know what? Like, screw it. I'm going to go over as well. But here's a stat for the Bengals. Since the beginning of last season, the Bengals are 2-11 to the overside as the away team. Like, this team has been hitting unders at just an insane rate on the road and really just overall. But I'm going over because, as Pierce alluded to, like, the Ravens secondary against Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and Higgins, if he's out there, like, this is not good. I mean, this is a terrible matchup for them. Their defense just in general not that great. And I don't think that the Bengals are going to be able to stop Mark Andrews at all either. So really hard for me not to see these offenses just, do something good. 47.5, I would probably wait. I think that this number is kind of dropping because people realize like the trend on Cincinnati. So if you could get it at 47 or even under that, that'd be great. I would probably wait and then take the over, but it's already dropping. Like I said, it's a prime time. Let's just go over. I don't know.
Dude, Burrow torched the Ravens for 941 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 1 pick in that season sweep last year. You two, you were free to go. Week 5, as we talked about, it kicked off last night. It was pathetic, but we're less than 46 hours away from Game 2 of the week in London. Aaron Rodgers wants to go see Big Ben instead. He wants to get loose in London. So I decided to pick up my Zoom telephone and call our friend Mike Golick, or Mike Jolick, to ask about his time over there as a player. So check this out. All right, Big Mike Golick of the Golick and Smetty podcast. We meet again. By the way, congratulations on your former team in the Eagles beating America's team, my Jacksonville Jaguars, last week.
America's team, I love it. They are playing well, though. The arrow is pointing up on Jacksonville.
I'll tell you what, man, like Duval, like the fans there in Duval loved the video of you last week being like they're one of the biggest surprises in the NFL. I'm just throwing it out there. You have a lot of fans down in the 904 right now in Jacksonville. But, Mike, I have more good news. For the first time, we have 2 teams with winning records meeting now in London, okay? Speaking of the Jaguars, they play there over a lot. So we have the Giants and Packers now, dude. You've played preseason games across the pond, like back in your playing days. So what are the challenges that guys face when you play a contest over there?
So I had it a little easier. It was a preseason game, so A, it didn't count, and B, we went over there for the entire week. So you get the whole week to kind of adjust yourself to, as I've always said, athletes we live the life of an itinerary. When to be somewhere, what to wear, what to eat, what you're doing. So you live off that. So we were there a week each time and able to get into kind of a rhythm and a flow. For a game, to go over for a game, A, it counts. B, a lot of it is how far are you traveling? Are you going to make it like a normal weekend? Are you going to go a day early? I know coaches talk to each other all the time. And then once you get there, the whole key for a team is make it as normal as possible to the normal routine the players are used to following. That's what players are used to, and anytime you get out of that, you have to understand players, they'll go in early to lift, they'll watch extra film in their facility during a week, they have their routine. Now, can that player follow that when all of a sudden they're going somewhere else, outside the country? And it doesn't even have to be outside the country, just a long trip, when you're kind of off what you normally do. So will they still follow what they do, their regiment and their itinerary? I think it's been going on long enough. And in all honesty, especially if you're coming from the East Coast or the Midwest, it's not that long of a flight. So I don't really think it changes a whole lot, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, I know, like, some teams that have played there, Mike, do like to spend the whole week there and adjust, especially, like, you've had a few teams that most of the time they're followed up with, like, a team's bye week. But I think the Packers are leaving, like, late Thursday night, very structured, not a whole lot of time over there leading up to Sunday. So, like, you have Aaron Rodgers who says, I'm kind of, like, bummed out. I really wanted to immerse myself in the culture over there. He wanted to go out and drink a Guinness and stuff like that. Like, that had to be part of it that you enjoyed, though, right?
So, again, when I was in preseason, it didn't count. So, believe me, we were out a lot.
Yeah, big boy.
But when the game counts, man, the one thing coaches don't want players to have is idle time when a game counts. So, Aaron can want to immerse himself all he wants. He can go ahead and go back in the offseason as far as the coaches are concerned.
Yeah, for sure.
And immerse himself in that. You're going there. What's always said, it's a business trip.
Yep.
So you got to follow what you normally do on a business trip. You want to get out of there with the win and get home.
So, Mike, what kind of shot you giving the underdog Giants here in this one? Because the Packers have been lacking that punch, it feels like, early on in the season and struggled to beat the Patriots with the third-string quarterback in overtime last week.
So here's why I give the Giants a chance. I mean, we have seen Aaron Rodgers with the ability to score quickly, but with this crew right now, it's just not happening. You have the leading rusher in Saquon Barkley. He is back to his old form when he first came in the league. So if you're leading and rushing, that means you're controlling the ball. If you're controlling the ball, that means Aaron Rodgers is on the sideline. I don't think this is going to be this unbelievably high-scoring game, but that's always the best way to stop a great quarterback is have him watch from the sideline because he can't hurt you from there. Yeah. And I think the Giants' defense is playing pretty well. They're only giving up, I think they're giving up under 18 points a game, but then again, it's not like Green Bay's offense is scoring a lot of points. We all just keep waiting for Aaron Rodgers and this offense to explode. Yeah. But it's going to take time, even if it does happen. So I would give the Giants a chance, A, because of the running game, and B, the defense is playing well.
I mean, they don't win pretty, but they're finding ways to win. And at 3-1 right now, I don't know. You could still make an argument that maybe they're not necessarily a Super Bowl contender, but we're 20% of the way through the regular season here, Mike. We've learned a lot. How many Super Bowl contenders are there really right now, in your opinion?
Well, I think more than we thought at the beginning of the season, just because nobody is really – I mean, you can look at the Eagles and say, I think they're the best team in football because they're the most balanced offensively and defensively. Even that being said, I mean, we see some crazy games on Sundays. We do every year. So while I think Philly's the best team in the league, are they head and shoulders above everybody else? Tough for me to say that. So, yeah, I think there are more teams than not that could make a run. Remember, this whole thing, and when I was a player, was all about, I don't care what the record is, just get to the playoffs. We've seen losing records and you get to the playoffs. It doesn't matter. Just get to the playoffs. You can't, last I checked, you can't win the Super Bowl unless you're in the playoffs. So just get there. Hopefully everything's, at that point of the season, you're hitting your stride. Another thing to take into consideration, where are we with injuries by the end of the season? But yes, I think there are more teams than we normally thought at the beginning of the year that have a shot to make a decent run.
Yeah, I think you're onto something here because entering Week 5, we have 8 teams with a 3-1 record, and one of them, Mike, being the Cowboys. And the Cowboys are 3-0 with Cooper Rush. The man has never lost a game as a starter. Not even the great Tom Brady can say that. Like, how much has your opinion changed of Dallas since Dak went down in Week 1? And I do believe that was a game you were on the call for.
Yes. Yeah, I was on the call for it. It was against Tampa Bay when he hurt his thumb. And I did Cooper Rush's first start last year against Minnesota in Minnesota, where he played pretty well, especially in the second half. So what you want your backup quarterback to do is keep your team's head above water till your starter gets back. And Cooper Rush is doing that, tenfold. He's doing a great job. But I am not one of those that subscribes to the, oh, no, there's a quarterback controversy. If Cooper Rush wins again if Dak's out. Do you hold Dak out until Cooper loses or it's not going so well? No. Dak Prescott's your starting quarterback. We now know what Cooper Rush can do, so if he has to go back in there, we can trust him. Cooper Rush has been in the league, I think, 5 or 6 years, and every year but 1 year he's been in the league, he's been under the Cowboys system, so he knows the system incredibly well. He doesn't turn the ball over, which is what you want with a backup quarterback. Rely on your stars, Pollard, Zeke, CeeDee Lamb, and your defense to get you to do what you do, but Cooper's even taken it another step and has been a huge part of these wins. So, but I still, when Dak is healthy, Dak is back in there.
All right, baby. Major League Baseball's postseason begins in less than an hour from now with the first edition of the Best of 3 Wild Card Series. So DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne, Nick Fryer, RotoWire's Eric Halterman are here once again to hand out some best bets because we did the DFS thing a little bit yesterday. So Rays and Guardians here, gentlemen, starts a little after high noon Eastern time. Phillies and Cardinals in a little under 3 hours from now. So give the people your absolute favorite bet from either of these games before first pitch. Nick.
Yeah, so I know that I'm on a panel now with 2 guys who think the Phillies are going to pull it out. And not only pull it out, they're going to do it in 2 games. I am going to go with the Cardinals in game 1. Because I know I said it yesterday, right? It's going to be hard for Wheeler to do what he did in this season against the Cardinals. He skunked them twice, 7 innings, shutout ball, both times out, back-to-back outings. It's very impressive. It's hard to do that 3 times in 3 chances. And the other thing that set off my alarms with this one too was I was looking at the pitcher props, is where I usually start with all my picks, and I was looking at Wheeler's outs total, and it's at 15.5, which is low for him. I mean, he went over this number 19 times in 26 starts this season. That I'm just unsettled by that number because why would Wheeler's prop be that low? I would think it would be closer to six innings because the way we've been talking about, right? You're going to rely on Zach Wheeler. You're going to rely on Aaron Nola to get you past this round. How are they going to do that if he's only pitching 5 innings in this game? Obviously, he'd go over this number. It's very doable. He's done it a ton. But for DraftKings Sportsbook to set the line there, it's a little alarming for me.
And Garion, something Cardinals devil magic probably this postseason, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was that report that came out last night that Pujols considered retiring in like June because that's how bad it was going.
Yeah.
And then poof, little Cardinals devil magic. Suddenly he's got 703 home runs, hitting second in the lineup against a right-handed pitcher for game 1 of a playoff series. It's pretty incredible. I will say Nick brings up an interesting point with some of these outs recorded props, but I wouldn't be looking at them necessarily going like, man, maybe he's not going to go deep into this game. They're all low. Like Alek Manoah's gone over. Well, we'll get to that one in a second. But like even Max Scherzer's is under 6 innings. So I think it's just kind of that playoff aesthetic with some of these outs recorded props. I think if Wheeler's feeling it, I would assume this will be his 4th start off the IL. He's probably fully built up. So I think he's fine. I don't think there's going to be any restrictions. I've talked enough about this series. So I will say my favorite other wild card round totality prop is actually in that Guardians-Rays series, and it's under 15.5 runs for the series as a whole. That's even money plus 100 right now. There's a couple ways this hits. One of these two teams wins it in 2 games because there's no way these two teams are combining for 16 runs in the first 2 games of this series. And even if it goes 3, like let's just kind of run through who the pitchers are going to be in this series. You've got Glasnow going to start game 2. Rasmussen would start game 3 if it got that far. You got Tristan McKenzie, and that's aside from the Shanes who are pitching today. You've got 2 top 5 bullpens by ERA waiting in the wings if these guys can only go 6 innings. And then 2 of the best managers in baseball when it comes to kind of utilizing these bullpens in Terry Francona and Kevin Cash. So I just look at 2 lineups that while they have their strengths, you know, the Guardians don't strike out.
Yep.
The Rays have just incredible team speed. They're both towards the bottom of the league in isolated power. I mean, the Guardians at 129 ISO are only better than the Tigers in 2022. So it's not like these teams put up big crooked numbers. I just see a lot of low scoring games, a lot of really heavily bullpen impacted games. And I think the series goes under this number.
All right, what do you think here, Eric? Because the Cardinals, I think the Phillies have the Cardinals beat here on raw power. Although that advantage could be mitigated a little bit because Busch Stadium, one of MLB's most pitcher-friendly ballparks there.
Yeah, and the Cardinals actually had the better performing lineup if you go by park-adjusted stats over the regular season because Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado had outstanding seasons. I still like the Phillies in that series on the power of their 2 starters. I like them today. But my favorite bet of those early games is actually Rays plus 105 at Guardians. I'll gladly take the plus money here. I think you've got 2 very mediocre lineups. The teams were 15th versus 16th in Team WRC plus. 2 excellent pitchers, Shane Bieber, 2.88 ERA, even in a season where strikeouts were reduced, and then Shane McClanahan's breakout on the opposite side. I think you have 2 opposing facts that you could point to make the pick here. On the one hand, McClanahan was shaky down the stretch. 7 strikeouts against 7 walks in his last 3 starts. Those did come against the Astros and Blue Jays, though, and the Guardians don't have a lineup nearly that quality, especially against lefties. Against lefties, they are very bad, 27th in Team WRC+. That's one of the worst teams in the league. I think I care much more about that than a few off starts from McClanahan against very good teams. So I think McClanahan and the Rays are going to shut down an offense that just cannot hit lefties at all.
All right, let's go Mariners and Blue Jays. That's a little after 4 o'clock Eastern time today here, guys. Castillo and Manoah on the hill. Where are you looking for bets in this one, Gary? And this was a lopsided series during the regular season. Seattle winning 5-7, including 4 straight in Toronto. But that was in July before your feathered friends really decided to turn on the Jets.
It was actually, they won 4 of 7, and all 4 were in Seattle. The Jays swept them when they were in Toronto.
Oh, that's right. Good.
This is a weird one, though. There were a lot of strange games like in that Seattle series. A bunch of teams were missing people. I don't know. It was a long time ago, like you said. I wouldn't really have that be too much of a factor necessarily. I'm just going to go back to those outs recorded props because, again, they do seem strange. I guess you do have to factor in just how quickly a pitcher might get the hook in a 3-game playoff series if things aren't going, optimally. But when it comes to the Blue Jays, I think, you go through every single one of these teams and you point out their strength and their weakness. The clear weakness for the Blue Jays is their bullpen. And I don't think they're going to want to remove Alek Manoah from this game even a nanosecond before they have to, because he is clearly better than all but one pitcher in their bullpen. So over 17 and a half outs recorded, Manoah threw 6 innings or more in 25 of his 31 starts this season. He isn't the same strikeout guy he was last year, but that's because he's finishing at bats a lot quicker. He's not really walking anybody. He's someone who, by opponent average exit velocity, is towards the low end of the league. Like, he really does a great job at inducing poor contact early on in at bats, which is exactly what you want with a prop like this. So I think he goes over 17 and a half. Even if he allows 2 or 3 earned runs, I just think the Jays want to get this guy through 6 innings.
All right, Eric, the narratives around playoff baseball, right? They tend to center around pitching. It's impossible, though, to ignore Toronto scored 81 more runs than Seattle this year.
Yeah, Toronto, one of the best lineups in the league. I believe they finished 2nd in Team WRC+, although Seattle's not bad either, 8th in that category. Their overall raw numbers look a bit worse because of that park. And I think I'm going to take the Mariners for that reason. Basically because you take the plus money when you can get it in the playoffs if you think it's at all close, because every postseason game is closer to a coin flip than we probably think it is. With the Mariners definitely behind in lineup, they have a big advantage in the bullpen. They were 6th as a unit in park-adjusted ERA, whereas the Jays were a mediocre 15th. And I actually think the starting pitchers are even or maybe even slightly in the Mariners' favor here. Maybe I'm the last person to get Alek Manoah, but man, a 2.24 ERA next to a Sierra of 3.85, well over a run and a half worse with some of those ERA estimators. Maybe Manoah has some way that he's reliably way better than the estimators think, but he hasn't been at the big league level for long, and the ERA estimators have, and on the whole, they usually do eventually win out. Maybe Manoah settles in as better than that 3.85 Sierra, but I don't think it's by this much. And with Castillo finishing with an ERA under 3 himself on the Mariners side, I think it's pretty close to a push in the pitching, or at least in the starting pitching. And I trust that Mariners bullpen to win a tight game down the stretch.
Nick, were you looking for bets in this one? Again, lopsided series in the regular season here.
Yeah, but I still look at this one, and I think this is going to be a tough one to call on the money line. So obviously staying away from the run line. And I'm looking at the total, actually, for this one, too. Even though we've got 2 lineups that did well against right-handed pitching throughout the course of the last month-plus games in terms of ISO. But the big thing for me, so I'm going to go with the under on the total here. It's set at 7 runs last I checked. And then looking at the movement, the market movement on this, that's kind of what's guiding me here. So something that you're going to want to monitor throughout the course of the day until first pitch. 44% of the bets on DraftKings Sportsbook for the total on this game were towards the under, but 50% of the handle was towards the under. So it looks like the smart money is going with the under in this one. So that's where I'm going to go. But again, monitor the movement throughout the day.
All right, Eric, finally, Scherzer going against Darvish in New York. What's your favorite bet in this one, dude?
Yeah, I said you take the plus money whenever you can get it in the playoffs, but I don't think I can bet against either of the Mets aces here. I think the Mets will win this in 2, and I think Mets in 2 is a good bet. But for this specific game, might actually look to the Padres side and go Yu Darvish going over 5.5 strikeouts. That's at plus 100 right now. He's gone over 5.5 in 9 straight games. And you might say, well, it's the playoffs. They're going to yank him earlier. I mean, maybe, but that's just not something they do with Darvish. The last time he threw less than 6 innings in a start was May 13th. He's not going against an easy lineup, and the Mets don't strike out all that often, but I think the Padres are going to need Darvish to go toe-to-toe with Scherzer if they have a chance in this series. I think he gets a strikeout per inning, and I think he goes at least 6.
I mean, Gary, and I think this is another one of those lopsided series, right? The Padres won it 4 games, 4-2 in this series.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and it's the most lopsided series line we have. I mean, I think justifiably the Mets are heavy favorites in this series. I'm with Eric. In a general sense, I just don't want to bet against the Mets in their 2 aces. I mean, it's hard to go into a situation against Max Scherzer or Jacob deGrom and say, I think the other team is going to win. It's really just a matter of finding a fun way to get some plus money if you feel that way. So I would actually go with Max Scherzer to record a win at plus 190. Some concern with just how good Darvish is. He's been fantastic down the stretch of the season, but Max Scherzer at home this season, a 1.67 ERA with a .88 whip. You really don't have to play the home road splits game with Scherzer. He's fantastic wherever he throws, but I mean, at Citi Field in 2022, he's been almost unhittable. And yeah, I do have a little concern about like the depth of the Mets lineup, especially I know Starling Marte made the roster, but I don't know if that actually means he can swing all of a sudden. That seemed like it was a problem 3 days ago. So even if he's in there, like, I don't necessarily think that's helping the Mets, but I do think they still do enough just with their contact skills to get him run support early in this game. And I think Scherzer does pick up the win. And it's a much more appealing line to take the Mets winning than just on the money line.
Nick, in their 4 losses to the Padres this season, the Mets were outscored 26-4.
Okay, so I'm not going with either the money line for either of these teams either, and I'm going to actually go on the other side of Eric here and take Max Scherzer over 5.5 strikeouts. Now, I am laying a little bit more juice here, but he did get 8 strikeouts when he saw the Padres earlier in the season. Obviously not a strikeout-happy lineup against right-handed pitching, but we always talk about it, right? Pitching outweighs things out, outweighs good hitting in October. Went over this number in 8 of his 10 home starts this season. 6 of his 8 home postseason starts, Scherzer has logged at least 6 strikeouts, and it would be 7 for 8 if Dave Roberts didn't pull him early in that wild card game last year. And of course, in that setting, it's a little bit different versus this where we have a 3-game series as much as it's a tight spot. If you're feeling a little saucy and you want to go with Eric and my picks, if you want to parlay them together with the same game parlay function on DraftKings Sportsbooks, 6+ strikeouts for Darvish and Scherzer, that's plus 245.
Yeah. All right, guys, so that's all the time we have. By the way, Buck Showalter saying he may not pitch to DeGrom in this series. It's got to have the Padres feeling pissed off and maybe a little disrespected. But with one regular season finishing in Major League Baseball, it's time to start another. Real NHL hockey will begin tonight. So we're going to talk some sticky puck, but let's head to Florida, where our friends at the Levitard Show sat down with South Florida's newest addition on the ice, Matthew Tkachuk.
Where do you smell worse and get more sweaty? Practice or just walking to your car from the facility?
Right. Well, I go to St. Louis in the summer, pretty humid, so I'm used to it.
It competes with down here?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it does.
I feel
We pride ourselves on our sweatiness
No.
down here. We're
We need
very
a larger
offended by
sample.
it.
It's hot there, but
I saw like 3 Buffalo Bills just die on the field on Sunday because of how humid it was.
Yeah, no, that looked. I like how they put the road team right in the sun.
Yeah.
It's a very good tactic. So
Yeah, we should consider that at the FLA Live.
Just
Yeah.
like cut a hole in
Yeah,
the
cut a
roof
hole
and
in
just
there.
like beam the sun down on the opposing
it's
bench.
not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Addie's going to get on that. All right,
Yeah.
good.
How are you liking your time here in South Florida? Obviously, this is a hockey market that has some reputation nationally. Small, but passionate and growing. You obviously came into town in a huge blockbuster trade, one of the biggest that we've seen in recent memory. Out goes a club legend in Jonathan Huberdeau. In comes you. How have you navigated filling in those skates and making South Florida your home?
I've absolutely loved it so far, and each day it's gotten better. There's something new that happens each day that I'm like, I have to pinch myself. I'm like, do I actually live here? And like play hockey and make money and compete and do everything down here. Like it's a dream location. It's visiting all the teams throughout the years. We playing in the West didn't get a ton of time down here in Florida. It'd be like 1 game out or 1 day out or back to back. So never really got the appreciation for it, but it's got to be the best place to play in the NHL. It's not even close.
Guys and gals, the NHL regular season starts tonight. Yeah. Way across the globe in Prague, as you can see on your screen, lots of new faces in new places as the puck is about to drop on the freshest campaign. Let's do a little season preview here. Let's get some best DFS picks and plays for the season and tonight's regular season opener with NHL.com's Fantasy on Ice podcast host Pete Jensen and RotoWire's Paul Bruno. Great to have you boys back talking some sticky pucks. So we just heard from Matthew Tkachuk. He's loving South Florida. Of course, who could not? You're with a good hockey team. You're in paradise. Tons of other guys moving teams here as well. So which player on a new team, Pete, will have a huge fantasy season and you think will end up in lineups night in and night out?
There are so many to choose from. This is the best summer of player movement that I've ever seen working for the league, hands down. One bold guy that was not on that list that I really like for the upcoming season that changed teams is Kevin Fiala for the LA Kings. He comes over from Minnesota, where he was top 10 in even strength points last year on a separate line from Kaprizov. And now he's going to be playing with Anze Kopitar on the top line and first power play with Kopitar and Doughty. You can make the argument that Kopitar has never played with a wing of the caliber of Kevin Fiala. So I think that Kevin Fiala has bold prediction, 100-point potential, and could take it even a step further this year after the trade.
Okay, Paul, what about you, man?
I love that call. That was one of the guys I was going to talk about. And you got to look at Caril Caprasov as a guy who not a lot of people know that he got over 100 points last year, and he's going to be a cinch to do it again. He's one of the most dynamic players in the NHL. But don't forget about Jonathan Huberdeau, who was involved in that swap with Tkachuk. This guy's going to a pretty nice situation in Calgary. I told you guys in the offseason that I thought Calgary actually won that trade because of the defenseman that came along with him in that deal. So I think that Calgary's well positioned to be just about as good as they were last year. So don't sleep on Hubie. He's going to have another 100-point season, I do believe. And then Johnny Gaudreau, another big name, moves on to Columbus to play with Patrick Laine. Boone Jenner's a lucky guy in the middle of that lineup. I see a big year for Gaudreau, but he's going to lift the fortunes of Laine and Boone Jenner for sure. And then don't sleep on what happened in Boston. I know that they've got a number of guys on the injury list, but Pavel Zacha is a guy to watch there. He's going to get top-line minutes, and I think he's only scratched the surface of what he could be as a pro. 15 goals and 36 points last year. He's going to dwarf that very early on this season. I'll give you a defenseman to think about, too. Brett Burns should be a great fit with a dynamic team in front of him in Carolina. They got quite a depth chart of forwards, but now I expect him to be the linchpin of their defense and maybe the power play quarterback on what should be an awesome man advantage group there.
Yeah, that Zacha, Krejci, Pasta line, man, the checkmates there looking hot in the preseason. Speaking of that, hey, Prague, the season starts tonight. So we got the Sharks, we got the Predators facing off. Paul, captain pick for this DFS showdown. Who do you got? How much money are you spending?
I'm going to go to the goalies and say Juuse Saros, my captain's pick. You got to get big points when you pick the winning goalie on a small slate. That's a big difference maker. And he's on the short list of workhorses in the NHL in the Nets this season. So I'm all over him. And I want to grab him in my season longs if I can, wherever I can. Alternatively, top skaters Philip Forsberg, Duchesne, and high-scoring defenseman Roman Josi are other Preds to consider. And I'll give you one name on the Sharks side. Thomas Hertl is the best of the lot there. High-scoring forward, should be all over their offensive stats this season.
Okay, Pete, who gets the nod of captain, baby?
I like the Hertl storyline with him returning to his home country of Czech Republic for these big games over the weekend. I'm going with Matt Duchesne, though. The type of season this guy put up last year with career highs in goals with 43, points with 86 in 78 games. We've never seen anything close to that from Duchesne, so he's fitting in really well in Nashville. It's been kind of like a rebirth for Nashville's offense, and then they just got better in the offseason, adding guys like Ryan McDonough and Nino Niederreiter. And Matt Duchesne in the preseason had a 5-point game, 7 points in 2 preseason games. So ride the hot hand. He's already carrying it over for the Preds and a big matchup advantage against the Sharks, who he had 3 goals in 3 games against last season.
All right, dudes, we'll stick in here with DFS. And for anyone putting together some final touches here, finishing touches on their final season-long drafts, who's going to be a guy here, Pete, who is going to be in our lineups almost every day this year?
Well, I think we're about to see a changing of the guard in the Atlantic Division with either the Ottawa Senators and or the Detroit Red Wings. Both of those teams got significantly better this offseason. Everybody might be flocking a little bit more to Ottawa with the likes of DeBrincat and Claude Giroux adding to their already strong offense. So definitely stack from that team in fantasy. I've been doing it in all my drafts so far. But I like Jacob Vrana from the Detroit Red Wings as a sleeper in season-long leagues. He's probably going to have some nice value in DFS contests to start the season. I see him under their new coach, Derek Lalonde, really skyrocketing this season if he could stay healthy. He could play top line with Dylan Larkin. He could play first power play. Even if he's on the second line, he'll be playing with players like David Perron and Andrew Kopp. So really exciting future ahead for Jacob Vrana, who was top 5 in the NHL in 5-on-5 goals per 60 minutes. That shows that he has untapped potential, and if the new coach utilizes him well, you could really see him explode here for the Red Wings.
Paul Matthews and McDavid, we know this. They were the top 2 DraftKings fantasy producers last season. Who will be at the top this year?
Well, you mentioned those 2 guys. I mentioned Caril Caprasov. a guy coming off that 108-point campaign. Not a lot of people think of him in the top 5 players in the league, but off what I saw last year, he's again a guy who could even make higher totals than he did last season. So strong wild club, looks to be a contender this year. I don't share Pete's view on the Red Wings and Senators. I think they still fall behind the big 3 in that division. So I'm not as high on that group, but I'm also looking at the situation in Colorado and Nashville, where the defenseman should be front and center. Cale Makar is in the top 5 players that I mentioned in my mind in the entire league, and I think he's going to have another awesome campaign in the regular season. And Roman Josi almost got 100 points last year for Nashville, so don't sleep on the high-scoring defenseman.
All right, Pete, we'll get you guys out of here with this. Preseason pick, need to know, who will we see in the Cup final this year?
So my pick is Hurricanes over the Avalanche.
Woo!
I think the Avalanche's floor is to go back to the Final Four. If the goaltenders work out, whether it's the new guy Georgiev from the Rangers or Pavel Francouz, who's been really strong for them so far in his career, I still think that skater group, even if they deal with injuries, they're just loaded. They lost Kadri and Burakovsky, but they have different guys that can step up, like Alex Newhook and JT Compher. So I think the Avs have a great chance to get back to the final, but this Hurricanes team feels like a team of destiny. They got a couple of guys in their contract years. Freddie Anderson, unfinished business for him after he was injured in the playoffs after a career year. They added Brent Burns, like Paul mentioned, to run their first power play and play with Jacob Slavin. They have a strong offense that needed that finisher, and they just might get that guy at around the midseason mark. They traded for Max Pacioretty in the offseason. He's dealing with an injury, but he should be back for the stretch run. If he comes back at the right time, that could be the guy that puts them over the top. So again, my pick is the Carolina Hurricanes. It feels like they're due to get to the Cup final because they've been really good the past 3 or 4 years under Rod Brindamore. So I'm going with the Canes to finish the job this year.
Yeah, when we had Kevin Weeks in studio a couple weeks ago, he also was very high on Carolina, hoisting Lord Stanley. Paul, who's your pick?
Nice.
Well, you can easily make a case for a Cup final rematch. I'm not going to go there. It's obvious those are 2 of the top candidates. Of the other teams you mentioned, let me break it down. I see on the western side, the Edmonton and Calgary meeting in the second round of the playoffs. One of those teams is going to go to the final, in my opinion. And in the East, Carolina and Toronto have the deepest rosters, particularly here close to home. And I want you to save this tape for AJ when he comes back on the air. Let him hear it later in the season. The Leafs have 5 forward lines that could be skating regular season for almost any club in the NHL. I'm going to go with Toronto and Calgary in the Stanley Cup final.
All right. There you go. Good for you, Paul. Good for you, bud. All right, everybody. You 2 are free to go. Enjoy hockey. What's that? That starts at like 2 o'clock, I think, Eastern time today.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We're
Okay.
excited.
Everyone get those lineups filled out on DraftKings right meow. We'll be back. We'll wrap up the show with some college football picks after checking in with Julian Edlow on his KFC bucket picks for this Sunday night's game between the Bengals and Ravens. What's up, everyone? Emerson Latzia here, DraftKings contributor, Julian Edlow there. Welcome to this week's Showdown Spotlight, presented by KFC. So we have a pivotal game for a pair of AFC North contenders here with the Bengals battling Baltimore in Baltimore. And Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, dude, wow, he's been putting on a show this season all year long. Is he worthy of being named your KFC bucket pick? You got to tell me.
He is worthy of being named my KFC bucket pick. Bad second half against Buffalo last week, but I'm looking for Lamar Jackson to bounce back at home here. The 2 good games that he had this season, he had 43 and 48 DraftKings fantasy points. He gets points on the ground, he racks it up through the air, and I think this divisional battle against Cincy is a good spot for him on Sunday Night Football.
All right, so then who is a player you are stacking with Mr. Lamar Jackson, a.k.a. your bucket pick?
Yeah, the stack is going to go with Mark Andrews because that's the guy that gets going when Lamar Jackson gets going. Those 2 40-point games for Jackson that I mentioned, Mark Andrews had nearly 29 DraftKings points in both of them. He had double-digit targets in both of them. He had more than or near 100 yards and 3 combined touchdowns in those 2 games. Cincinnati ranks just about league average against tight ends, so I think if Lamar gets going, Mark Andrews gets going.
Mr. Mandrews, thank you so much, Julian. And thanks to all of you for watching this week's Showdown Spotlight presented by KFC. Order all of your family-style favorites and keep your team fueled all season long. Now that's finger looking good. Another weekend of college football here is upon us. And of course, we got Colin Sherwin hopping on air. Oh, look at the bucket hat. Look at you.
Straight back from New Orleans. Got me a little Pell's bucket hat here.
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody in New Orleans who was so nice to so many of us who evacuated for the hurricane. And yeah, good times. Glad to be here, buddy. Congratulations to your Central Florida Knights on their big midweek Wednesday. Undefeated on Wednesdays now.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yep. I'm sure that's at the top of their LinkedIn page. So we have 4 minutes to go in the show. We got to rip through this stuff, dude. So let's go. Let's talk some best bets for college football. We have to start what the most anticipated matchup since June is. That's Jimbo and Saban finally meeting with the Aggies struggling. Bama back at number 1. Where is the best bet here?
The best bet's to probably figure out who's going to be hurt, who's going to play, and then bet on the game that way. Yeah, there's just too many injuries here to really get a good sense. The line might move before the injuries on Twitter do, so keep an eye on the line. Right now it's about 24 everywhere. I like Bama at 24, generally considering that Max Johnson's probably not going to play. Even if Jalen Milroe goes, I still think Bama's in a good spot. And of course, Bryce Young goes, 24 is going to be a great price. So I would lean Bama here either way. I think with Bryce Young on the field, though, this is a lock at 24. But until I know what's happening, I'm probably just going to stay away from this game. I think this line's going to move a lot between like 23 and 28 and a half, just depending on who's going to go.
Yeah, unfortunately, this game looked a lot more intriguing at the start of the season than it does right now. So let's go to the Red River Rivalry. So we're not going to go there, but it does renew on Saturday. But the yearly showdown between Texas and Oklahoma, that's not even the biggest Big 12 matchup being staged at the same time. That distinction goes to number 18 TCU, number 17 Kansas. Kansas, what, 5-0 now, Colin? Like your 2.5 win total bet cashed with ease here. So Kansas is getting 7 at home. Do they keep the good times rolling?
No, because I think TCU covers. Right now it's about 6.5, and I think this TCU offense is just a little too good. They're 10th in S&P in the country right now. This team can really move the ball. Max Duggan, one of the better quarterbacks in the country. Kansas, and the bigger problem is that Kansas is 80th on defense. You know, we love to watch this Kansas team play, and Jalen Daniels is so much fun, and this is a really great story. I can't stop a nosebleed. I love them so much, and I love to watch them play. Right now, this total is really, you know, there were some places that opened this total in the 50s. I'm not really sure what they were thinking. I do think that we're going to see some stops in this game, though. If you get this number to like 68 on the total, I actually like under a smidge here somehow, some way. But yeah, I'm going to lean TCU to definitely take it, especially at 6.5. And at 7, I would still probably be comfortable in TCU.
I mean, dude, the defense is not great. So TCU's defense, 65th nationally, Kansas 79th. So yeah, I think there's a reason odds makers are expecting like a huge shootout here. Any outright upsets brewing in your opinion?
I got one that's a mini and then one that's a biggie.
Okay.
I really like BYU this week in Vegas. I think people are underestimating the fact that this is kind of as much of a home game for the Cougs as it is for Notre Dame.
Absolutely. I was going to say, no, every time I've been there when I worked in Utah and we had to go to Vegas, cover a BYU event, that fan base travels to Vegas.
They don't only travel to Vegas. I mean, there is a huge Mormon population in the Valley. So I think this crowd's going to be as close to 50-50 as they can get, although Notre Dame controls the tickets. This is technically a Notre Dame home game. It's their Shamrock Series. But I think BYU fans are going to find a way into that huge stadium, and they're going to fill a lot of it. It's going to be a really good atmosphere. You can get BYU at plus 3.5 right now. This Notre Dame team's just not good. I mean, BYU's not world beaters either, but like getting 3.5 in the semi-home game, I really like BYU here. But the bigger one, the big game that I think can actually happen this week. This is a terrible spot for Wake Forest. Army's just a terrible matchup for what Wake. It's 16.5 right now. Army can straight up outright win this game. That can absolutely happen. Neither of these teams are going to be able to stop a nosebleed either. Wake is 89th in S&P defensively. Army's 107th. So an over is also obviously a play here. The only problem with betting overs against academies is you get that triple option. It's going to really take a lot of time off the clock. That's going to be your bigger thing that you're fighting more than the defenses. I think this is a one-score game at the end, and if Army can find a way to get a turnover, and they've turned people over this year, I think they can find a way to win this game.
Wake Forest, one of the strongest teams in the ACC this season. Last question for you here, quickly, dude. Slate-approved pick. What's your favorite bet on the board this week in college football?
Tennessee's going to put LSU in a dirt field. This is only 2.5 right now. I think Tennessee wins this going away. I know it's on the road, and I know it's Death Valley, but it's Death Valley at noon. It's not Death Valley at night. I'll take Tennessee minus 2.5. Love Kentucky 6.5. South Carolina. If Will Levis plays, it should be 9.5. I don't think he's going to go. But even if he doesn't, I still think South Carolina's just terrible. And Iowa, Illinois, the total's 36.5. These teams could play basketball and not score 36.5 in 3 hours. Under. Don't even think about going over. You see that small number? Go under.
Colin Sherwin, great having you on. As always, my dude, enjoy your weekend. That is a show, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. So Madden starts at high noon. The slate tonight, 5 o'clock, talking more baseball bets, college football, NFL Sunday. And we're back here in studio, 11 o'clock Eastern time, live Sunday morning, NFL Sunday. All the good stuff, baby. Enjoy your weekend.